Hey, hi, and warm welcome to the MPavilion premiere of the film White Cube here at Parkade Car Park in Melbourne, Australia. My name's Helen Runting. I'm an architectural theorist and I run a small practice in Stockholm in Sweden, so it's my great privilege to be home at the moment and able to be here with you tonight. This is the final MPavilion event in a 5-month series, and if, like me, you haven't had the chance to catch up on any of the previous events, I'd like to direct you to the website because all talks are recorded and available if you'd like to catch up on them. I'd also like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Yalukit Willem Bunurong as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Yalukit Bunurong are 2 of the 5 major language groups of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their land, their ancestors and their elders, past, present and to the future. We also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which anyone watching a recording of this event today finds themselves. The conversation that we're about to have brings together a diverse range of voices in preparation for showing the film at 8:30, each of which have a different place and which will come with a different narrative in relation to the film and the project which it addresses. So the premiere will start at 8:30. We have 25, almost 30 minutes here. And between now and then, I will be joined by Cedart Tamasala, who will be translated by Eléonore Hellio. Cedart is an artist and the vice president of Catpc, the Congolese Plantation Workers Art League. And Eléonore is an artist and member of Congo Astronauts, and she'll be translating for us this evening. Thank you so much for joining us from Lusanga in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are also joined by Arsene Ijambo, who is an architect and general secretary of the Congalese the Association of the Architects of the Congo, who's joining us from Baltimore in the States. David Gianotten, managing partner, architect at OMA, who's joining us from the Netherlands, and Renzo Martens, the filmmaker and artist behind this project, who's joining us with the White Cube in the background, also from the Netherlands. There is a particular scene, and I understand that's a little bit sensitive that I don't give any spoiler alerts, given that you're about to watch the film, but there's a particular scene in the White Cube where Catpc member and artist Matthew Kusiyama asks a curator in the Congolese room in the African collection at the Met in New York the rather simple question, how did these artworks get here? This is an unanswerable question for the curator, the art market being the only possible answer that she can offer. So in this scene, Kusiyama, and thus by extension Renzo as the filmmaker, expose and intervene into a rather directional flow of wealth, of art, of gold, of diamonds, out of the Congo and into the global north. There is a logistical, extractive, exploitative injustice in these outflows and inflows, and these lie at the heart of the film and the work that we're about to see. There's also a suggestion that such flows might be intervened within through art, the art market, its architectures and architects. So the White Cube is an act oriented towards perhaps intervening in flows, rethreading networks of relations, reworking narratives. We might think of it in terms of the feminist scholar of science, Donna Haraway's diagram of a string figure, this child's game where we create images with a single string. So I think using that as a way of thinking together in the next 20 to 25 minutes, we'll engage in trying to tell such a string figure, a lengthy, knotted, tangled story made up of at least 5, if not 7, if not hundreds of strings, emanating from various networks, Catpc, OMA, the fine arts world, the discipline of architecture. So with that said, I'd like to start perhaps this story then in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Lusanga and the work of CATPC, which in English translation is the Congolese Plantation Workers Art League, and ask Cedart Tamasala the seemingly simple question: can you tell us what CATPC is and does?
Oui. Merci pour la question. Moi, c'est Cedart Tamasala, comme vous venez de l'annoncer. Je suis l'un des membres de cette coopérative, de notre association, le Cercle d'art des Travailleurs des Plantations Congolaises, en sigle CATPC. Et nous sommes basés à Lusanga, en République démocratique du Congo, dans la province du Kwilu. Nous sommes une vingtaine d'artistes qui nous accroissons chaque fois parce qu'il y a toujours de nouveaux membres qui viennent pour adhérer, comme nous aussi on est venu adhérer. Et à part l'art, on est aussi agriculteurs, comme on nous appelle communément ici, les artistes planteurs, comme on aime bien se faire appeler. Donc à part l'art, on fait l'agriculture. Et cette agriculture, on veut la faire sur notre propre terre, nos propres terres. Donc on s'est engagé aussi à racheter toutes ces terres qui sont restées longtemps entre les mains des plus puissants, quoi. Et avec le revenu de l'art, la vente des sculptures et tout ce que nous faisons va vers le rachat des terres. Donc on évolue de plus en plus, on a un peu plus de terres qu'avant, et ce sont nos terres. On décide de quelle agriculture on va faire, qu'est-ce qu'on va planter pour nous, pour nos familles ou pour le commerce. Ça, c'est nous qui en décidons. Donc, ça, c'est déjà une bonne chose. Et à côté, on continue à faire l'art.
Okay. Thank you. I'm a member of the CATPC cooperative. We are based in Lusanga, in the province of Kwilu. We are about 20 artists, and we regularly open up the art workshop to new artists. So we're growing permanently. And we're not only artists, but we're also agricultors. Maybe Renzo, I don't know how you say agricultures in English. Okay, your sound is off. Okay, we are peasants, and
agriculturalists. We do agriculture.
Okay, agriculturalists. And apart from being artists and agriculturalists, we also in a process of getting back our land. And it's very important to us to buy back the land that was taken to us, and to decide what we plant on this land and what we can do on this land.
Et on fait aussi l'agroforesterie, donc on veut reboiser, on veut avoir beaucoup plus d'arbres parce que c'est super important pour l'instant, pour toute l'humanité déjà, de penser à cette question. Et nous, on est en train de travailler avec des experts. On a approché des experts pour nous aider à reboiser correctement toutes ces terres que nous sommes en train de racheter, et les terres que nous n'avons pas encore achetées parce qu'on ne compte pas s'arrêter. Donc, voilà.
Okay, so we are also involved in replanting forests, replanting trees. We think it's very important for humanity. And we are working with experts that inform us on different approaches to do that.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that introduction, and I hope that we will be able to jump back with further questions. I think, though, that having set the scene of the institution that really lies at the centre of the coming film, that we should also ground this discussion in built space. And tonight's discussion is one of many happening around the world that are being kind of beamed through the portal or the central node of the White Cube in Lusanga. But this is perhaps the only that has an overtly architectural focus, I've been told. And so with that, I think it would be good if we can thread this narrative through the physical building, which we see kind of behind Renzo here in Zoom. But I'm hoping that David Gianotten can walk us through the architecture, which is not only the building, but the drawings, the diagram, the plan, the master plan. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Helen. Good evening for you. For us, it was, of course, an honor to be asked to collaborate with Renzo on this project, and especially to empower the people in Congo on their own land to bring back biodiversity, but also to show their art in their own context and in the context it belongs to. We built a white cube, but we actually did something more. For the whole piece of land that was owned at that time, we made a master plan. A part where the community is, where the people simply live, and where you can also visit. An experience band in the master plan, where we have a conference center, which was the first project, so that we could portray the vision of CTAPC into the world. A workshop, simply where the art can be created. And then the white cube, where you can really expose this art, but also art that is connected to it. And then the nature part for the biodiversity with test gardens, plantations, and the bush that would grow and overgrow the master plan in time. And this simple idea of creating these different elements started about 3 years ago. The people are simply there as a community and live there. And we're trying to improve their living conditions, but we mainly try to keep them at the center of everything, because it's all about the people and the place. The first thing we did was to make a conference center, and as you just saw, it is there and it is working, and they are broadcasting from there, which in the jungle of Lusanga is obviously a challenge, and great that it worked. We had to build with local materials and with local building knowledge, and we will hear about that a bit more. But it's on the river side, a beautiful site overlooking the river in the trees, where we constructed this conference center that is at the first level. And then we finished it to show and to overlook the whole master plan and the whole area that was still needed to happen. And here you see, for example, a broadcast from there, which is constantly happening also in this series of introducing the film to the world. The white cube itself was a very simple white box that could really expose the art that was made there, but also art about Congo and about the context of the project. It's a very simple white box that we enlarged at the entrance and pushed down towards the plantation. And in it is a route. There's a door to get in, and at the end, there's a window to look out over the plantation. You see, it's a very simple plan where you constantly turn and see different wall sections for the different art, and where there's also space for the sculptures inside. So you enter at the high side, you walk in, you have the first part of the building where there is the art at the end. You turn, you come in the midsection where the different sculptures and paintings can hang. And then in the end of the building at the low side is the window to the plantation, to show the people where the creators of the art worked, but also the reintroduction of the biodiversity and planting inside Congo. So as you can see, The white cube was really built inside of the plantation that will transform over time into the forest. And kind of what you can see is that we started building first with the outside, and that was left for a while because then the funding for the roof and the interior needed to happen. And now it is completed. You see the roof is on. You see it's kind of inside of the plantation currently that is still partly operating. You also see that it is really part of daily life of the plantation, and simply all the works continue to go around it. And here you see the interior of the large door where you enter, and the first hall, not yet equipped with art, but showing the architecture space good. And here you see the window to the plantation at the end, which is the end point of the white cube. And here you see how it is part of daily life happening around. And also these people not only working on the plantation and on the biodiversity, but also are the artists that create the art. And they do that in this workshop that we designed to be open air, which was constructed third. And you see it's a very simple structure with a large roofscape shielding the people from the sunlight and from the rain, but being in the climate of the place. And here you see the creation of art going on. And as it was already mentioned, constant new artists are also coming to this place so that CTPC is enlarged. And here you see that the gardens are also started, the test gardens, where we test new plants that can bring back the biodiversity to the land and slowly erase the plantation as the only single planting on the site. And here you see that near the river, different plants are tested to be grown later on. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I think that when we look at this work, and in fact, Renzo's work as a filmmaker and artist, we see an interest in revealing the traces of production. And the white cube is a kind of archetype that needed to, I guess, be adjusted to respond to this site, to the very specific conditions of making architecture in the Congo. And here I'd love to ask Arsene, what were the challenges of producing, constructing, designing, of working with this project on the ground?
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to speak about this project. But first of all, for us, there's two aspects. The first aspect was, of course, the idea of to help people to reconquist their land was a very interesting, idea. When you see the history of this country for the last 100 years, the way they take the land and the way they create production for the needs of other people, not for the local people. And the second aspect, which was very interesting for us as an architect, is to work with Oma, which is one of the most important firm in architecture, and it was very interesting to us to work with them and to see how we can we can create this project. So the most important thing was, as you will see on the movie, that it's a poor area in terms of opportunity. So which means that you don't have an industry of contractor, a lot of contractor in the area, and then you have a lot of when you have a project like this, you have a lot of challenge in terms of how to make sure that the final project will be as we planned, And then there's a lot of technical point on which we have to working on to make sure that the local entrepreneur will be able to realize all the points without any confusion, without any misunderstanding. Yes, that was the most important point. The most important point. And when you see, for instance, the geometry of the white cube, the geometry of the white cube. You have to make sure that we have all the same understanding of the complexity of this building. That was the most important challenge. As an architect, of course, you can understand that when you are dealing with other parts, you have to make sure that you have the same understanding of the building. When you see, for instance, we used to, in this area, there's no many opportunity of construction, but when you construct, it's like you construct bridge or maybe school, but not museum. So you have to make sure that, I think it was according to me, I think maybe it's the first museum for the last, 50 years that they construct in this area. And then you have to make sure that we are in the same frequencies to make sure that, we realize the building. I think that was the most important for me. So first, the idea of to help people, to reconquest their land. What's a very interesting idea, and that's why we were very interested with the idea of Renzo, to work with them. And Omar, when you see all the projects of Omar in the world, as an architect, you have to be very interested. When they say, let's work about this, you are already interested and you want to share with them. I think that's the most important one that I can say.
Thank you. I love this idea of being on this same frequency as we speak through this kind of Zoom interface, and you guys can't see the audience that are then sitting kind of behind the camera that are also then looking at this screen. It's a very mediated situation we're in right now. But Renzo, I'd love to ask you about the film itself, because this is what we are about to kind of witness. And here we see film being used not necessarily as only in the sense of giving an account of a process, but also perhaps as a proposal for something to happen. How did you view the process of making this film?
Thank you, Helen. I'm really honored that we are all invited at MPavilion. So thank you, first of all. Indeed, it's a proposal. It's a proposition, if you will. The proposition is that we know for a fact that many museums in the global north, whether these are in New York or in other cities that are connected to bigger capital streams, have been built with profits that have been extracted from plantations. This is not just true in Congo, it's true in Indonesia, it's true in South America, Brazil, and it's ongoing, Many of the companies that are able to, through philanthropy or through taxes, fund museums that are dedicated to inclusivity, to diversity, have also a financial tie to other parts of the globe where rainforests are being cut down and where people are put to work in really horrendous labor conditions. This is ongoing, and I think the proposition here is that maybe by building, in this case, only one relatively small white cube on a former Unilever plantation in Lusanga, new connections can be made. And I think part of these capital streams could be re-diverted, they could be reorganized. There is enough money in the world, there's really no problem. The problem is that the money always goes to rich places and hardly ever flows back to the places where where it was extracted from in the first place. And so people living there don't benefit from white cubes and its diversity or openness to new ideas. They're actually victims of the white cube more than ever. And so this whole project is an attempt to reorganize that. And I think Cedart Tamasala spoke about it eloquently. People in Lusanga, Cedart and his colleagues, Mathieu Kassiama, Irene Kanga, they are as talented as anybody else on the planet. There's really, maybe more talented if you look at individuals, for sure. And there's really no reason why Cedart, for example, or some of his colleagues would not have access to these global networks of exchange, of debate. And so this is the attempt. We connect through the establishment of this white cube, thanks to Arsene, to David, and the people who work with them. There is now a connection between the ground zero of global economic inequality, the very first plantation Unilever started in Congo, forced labor, up to now, wages of like $20 a month for a full-time job. between that reality and the reality of museums who debate these issues. And so they should be connected, obviously, and that's the whole attempt here. And obviously, maybe one final point is that I visibly am not a Congolese guy. I'm a white male Western guy. And I think the role of white male Western people, like I am one, should not be simply of extracting and then debating how we extract. We should actively use the possibilities that historically have been granted to us to reorganize the world. And we can. And this is one tiny attempt in doing that.
Thank you, Renzo. We only have a couple of minutes really to engage in conversation, given this tiny window in time that we could get everybody, including the very many audience members, together at one moment. But I was thinking, if we reflect on the kind of archetypal form of the white cube, and also Arsene's comment that this might be the first, there's been many bridges, there's been many schools, but this might be the first kind of white cube, at least in this region. I'm wondering whether this idea of a kind of networked, almost cybernetic connection to global capital might also play out in terms of multiplication. Is this the first white cube of many? Would be one question. If there are many, does replication destroy its unique value? I would love to maybe first ask David, because this is a question about architecture and authorship and authenticity as much as anything, and then perhaps throw over to our other kind of threads within the conversation. So, David, was this meant to be a model or a prototype? Or is it a singular gesture?
No, this was meant to be unique, but also meant to start a conversation of which we didn't know where it was going. And obviously it was, in that sense, very much an experiment to try to get people think about reorganization and think about how you could connect these spaces to the same discussion. So it's not about trying to empower them, it's really to make them part of something. And the idea for us was really to make a place simply as a starting point. We have debated many types of opportunities. Should the white cube have multiple white cubes around in these areas, or should it kind of transpond in a different way? And I think that is mainly dictated by the people that actually use it, program it, and through the debate that starts existing. So I don't expect that something like this will just be a replica all around in different plantations, definitely not. But I hope that by doing something, and that can happen in other places as well, whatever that might be, they become part of the debate, become part of the discussion, and feel empowered in that discussion. And architecture can help, because this is, of course, a statement. If I show the image of the white cube in the plantation and the transformation of the plantation to the bush to anybody, everybody understands it immediately from a physical point of view. And that type of impact is maybe possible in other contexts as well. But I would definitely not think that this should be replicated on different plantations in the same way. It should be done in a contextual way inside of the story and empowering the people from there. We also really worked with the people from CTPSC and with the local architects, with Arsene and others, to construct this. This was not a one-off sketch of us and then kind of implemented. No, this was really about what did they want, how did they want it, and how could we help them organize it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add to David's comments there?
Oui, je veux dire quelque chose. C'est que pour nous, quand Mathieu entre dans le White Cube à New York et qu'il rentre aussi dans le White Cube à Lusanga, c'est quelque chose qui est très important pour nous. Ça veut dire que on a accès aussi à ces institutions d'art qui ont été les portes ont été fermées longtemps pour les gens comme nous, les gens qui vivent dans des endroits comme nous. Donc, cette distance est brisée et ça nous donne aussi, comment dire, la possibilité de se sentir concerné aussi, du fait que dès le départ, on était toujours là. Et il y a nos ancêtres qui ont tout donné pour que tout cela soit réel. Mathieu est tombé plusieurs fois d'un palmier, comme il a dit. Donc, ces fruits de palme qu'il a coupés, c'est aussi peut-être dans quelques murs, dans des musées par-ci, par-là. Donc, c'est un bâtiment qui nous concerne aussi, qui est aussi le nôtre. Donc, le fait qu'il soit à Lusanga, c'est vraiment un grand pas. Et aussi, pour que ces bâtiments ne soient quelque chose qui réoriente justement ces genres de discussions, qui rassemble tout le monde pour justement se pencher à ces discussions que la plupart des gens ignorent ou disons, effacent pour ne pas s'encombrer, quoi. Et donc, c'est une bonne chose, c'est un bon début et on doit s'y mettre tous parce que les réponses ne sont pas là, elles ne tombent pas, ça vient après des discussions, après des échanges des idées et c'est ce genre d'initiatives qui peuvent favoriser que tout le monde puisse contribuer et tout le monde se sente concerné et inclus. Donc voilà.
So for us, it's very important. For example, when the White Cube is very important, when Mathieu enters the White Cube in New York, and when he enters the White Cube in Lusanga, the first plantation of Unilever, suddenly it gives him access to all of these art institutions. And where in the past the doors of these institutions were closed. And it helps us and it helps everybody else to feel concerned, which wasn't the case or is very rarely the case that people feel concerned by the history of our ancestors that have filled up the white cubes of the world. And for example, Mathieu's ancestors often fell off the trees of palm trees.
C'est lui-même Mathieu qui est tombé d'un
And even Mathieu fell off palm trees while he was gathering the palm nuts. And so it's not a little matter. And this building indeed redirect, this type of discussions, the link between art and economics, that people easily erase from their minds. And to start this kind of exchange and this initiative is extremely important for us.
Thank you. If the aim of the conversation was to pull together these kind of threads, I think that particular thread is one that pulls us towards the film and towards consideration of what's at stake in this project and towards issues of wealth distribution, injustice, inflows, outflows, and this idea of a kind of global logistics within the art world. I have promised everyone on the panel that we will finish on time, and I see that we are 3 minutes over. So Renzo, Arsene, would you like to add just a couple of words before we close? Otherwise, we will start with the premiere. Do you have any final kind of words you'd like to leave with this audience sitting in a car park in the middle of the night in Melbourne with the sound of skateboarders quite loudly next to us?
Yes, so I enjoyed the movie first. And then, I think that the most important thing was the fact of create new relation, create new discussion, create new, discussion about the fact that people are trying to reconquest their land, their land, and in a pacific way, And this is our modest contribution, to this perspective that we are looking.
Thank you.
I have nothing more to add. This is all. Thank you so much. I think what Arsene said, David, Eléonore, and Cedart, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
With those words, I think if we could, as an audience, you can't see us, but perhaps you can hear us. So if we could put our hands together and thank you. Thank you. Wonderful to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.